Hey, how you doing? It's cruise news update time. Well, the experiment to resume cruising in Europe continues to sail forward, but have we hit choppy waters? Herzegruden, you're breaking my heart. And with all these ships leaving the fleet, are my cruises going to cost more? Let's talk about these things, plus take a look at the cruise news in today's episode of the Lido Loca Cruise Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Tony. If you enjoy that cruising and travel content, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. All right, so let's fire up the engines. Let's kick this thing off. Let's talk about the cruise news. I'd say if there's any overarching theme in today's show, it's really talking about the highs and lows of the resume to cruising. The resume to cruising happening in Europe, happening in Asia. And just in case anybody is unclear, this is not cruising for North Americans. This isn't cruising for people in the United States. We have our own set of issues here in the United States. We can't seem to get anything under control. And so, yeah, we're talking about the return to cruising in Europe. And why the return to cruising is important to North Americans is because, yeah, this is how the cruise lines are going to stay in business. They are going to start cruising in other places until we get our ducks in a row, and hopefully they make enough money in Europe and in Asia to keep this thing going. Seems pretty obvious, but based on the comments, I just wanted to put that clarification out there. Talking about cruising in Europe and Asia, this isn't for us. But it's important to us, so track along. So let's talk about that return to cruising in Europe. There are a couple cruise lines that have been doing cruises all through July. This is Paul Gauguin and Ponant. These are French cruise lines, not a lot of vessels. Paul Gauguin only has one cruise ship, but there's several vessels when it comes to Ponant, and they've been doing sailing since July the 13th. These are small cruise ships, usually 200 passengers or less. They have resumed operations with 8 cruise ships in July, sailing from Iceland, the Dalmatian coast, the Arctic, France, and French Polynesia. Health protocols, very similar to what we've seen in other places. They're limiting the capacity of certain public spaces like the spa and the theater to 50%. All the restaurants have been redesigned and the layout put in place for social distancing, and they're only offering contactless a la carte food options. All crew members wearing masks or protective shields when in contact with the guest. Guests are asked to wear a mask when they cannot social distance, especially in areas like indoor corridors, hallways, that kind of thing. It's not required, it's requested. So not a hardcore gotta put your mask on in the hallway health protocol. Prior to boarding, all guests had to present a doctor's note saying that they were fit to sail. They had to answer a health questionnaire, and they were subjected to a health screening before they could even cruise. Ponant is providing surgical cloth masks to all of their guests so that they have them on board. These cruises represent a mix of expedition cruises and island hopping cruises. And as these 8 ships have made cruises in July, so far so good. No negative stories coming out of Ponant and Paul Gauguin's return to cruising. But you may be saying to yourself, Tony, why do you keep telling me about these rinky-dinky cruise lines that are returning to cruising? When is somebody big going to return to cruising? Okay, fine. Hold on to your hat. Guess who's coming back to cruising in August? One of the biggies, MSC Cruise Line, returning to cruising in August in the Mediterranean. Starting from August the 16th, the MSC Grandiosa is going to be open back up for operation, making cruises from Genoa, Italy, making their way around the boot down to Malta, back to Genoa. So this is legit cruising that's going to be happening on the MSC Grandiosa starting the 16th of August. That's the Western Mediterranean. Then if you look to the Eastern Mediterranean, the MSC Magnifica will be servicing that area starting cruising August the 22nd, 7-night itineraries going on the outside of the boot, going all the way into Greece. So yeah, you got some cruising that's going to be happening from MSC, going to be following their health protocols. So they're going to be relying on the big health protocols for passengers that we've seen from everybody else. You've got your health questionnaire, you've got your temperature scan, you got your social distancing. The crew members on MSC will be wearing protective equipment, face coverings, mask. Doesn't look like there's a requirement for guests to wear masks on MSC. So this is what I would call a fairly big cruise line getting to test the waters in a big way in the Mediterranean this month in August. we'll keep a close eye on it, see what happens. Now let's talk about Hurtigruten. So Hurtigruten, a Norwegian cruise line, started early July sailing again. They operate different kind of sailing vessels around Norway, from ferries to cruise ships to different things. All in all, they've got 16 ships, and they're slowly working their way up to where all 16 of those ships will be back in service. The goal is to have all 16 of those ships in service in September. So they've done cruises for the majority of July, but of course the news story that started blowing up yesterday afternoon is that the Roald Amundsen, one of their newest cruise ships, their expedition cruise ship to the Arctic, well, they've had a virus outbreak. And they've had a virus outbreak in a way that nobody wants to see. And some of the details of this story leave you scratching your head. They went on a cruise on the 17th of July. They came back. They picked up new passengers. They went on another cruise on the 24th of July. And somewhere along that cruise, there were crew members that were complaining of not feeling well. They were evaluated, and the doctors did not feel like the way they were feeling was consistent with the current virus, but tests were administered as their protocol to see if they had the virus. Those test results were not available by the time the cruise ship made it back to its disembarkation point. 177 passengers got off the cruise ship and went home, and then the test results came, and 4 crew members have tested positive for the virus. Hurtigruten, I know you have the health protocols. I know you got a plan. But man, any cruise line out there, as we resume to cruising, if anybody is sick on any way that seems suspicious at all, wait till you get the test results before you let the people off the cruise ship. This is going to derail the effort to resume cruising. This is not a great story. This is not a great story that you let 177 people back into the population, and now you got to reach them by telephone or email, and they're reaching out to the people from the previous cruise or reaching out to this cruise saying, look, we had somebody on board that tested positive, and now you're back home in your community. Please self-isolate, but you've already been back home in your community. I'm worked up because I want to see cruising resume, but we cannot repeat the mistakes of early March, and those mistakes were letting people go home, and this perception that the cruise passengers were bringing the virus back to their community, it can't keep playing out. The Roald Amundsen, everybody's off board except the crew. The crew is isolated. They've canceled their next sailing. It's a wait and see. I haven't seen any repercussions, like now all of a sudden cruising's going to shut down in Norway, anything like that. But you can't have very many of these stories before that is the end result. I'm not naive. I've been saying all along that outbreaks will occur on cruise ships. You cannot contain this virus in a way or mitigate it in a way where that's not going to be true. So the only thing you have to fall back on is how you respond. Proactive. Let's just assume the worst so that we do the best. This is the way that cruise lines are going to have to react, or it's just not going to work out. You know, we're starting to put a track record together in Europe and in Asia of cruises that are going and working out okay, and it's not going to take very many of these ones not working out okay that it's going to be a challenge. Real talk time here. I've talked to plenty of people that are happy to go on a cruise ship and potentially get the virus as long as there is some process in place to deal with it when it happens. Now, if you're not one of those people that are willing to go on the cruise ship and possibly risk getting the virus, then it's not time to go cruising. But there is a large amount of people that are willing to take that risk. And the only way that cruising will resume is if those people are allowed to take the risk. But the thing that's going to derail it, I'll say it one last time, is the inability to identify it, to take care of it, and to take care of people and just send them home. We can't do it. All right, I'm just keeping my eyes peeled for the news to see if there's some sort of blowback from this, if all of a sudden the resume to cruising grinds to a halt. And finally, let's look at the idea of, is your cruise price going to increase as cruise companies reduce the size of their fleet? We talked about it in the show yesterday. Carnival Corporation removing 15 cruise ships from their fleet. So doesn't that mean in a scenario where demand is high and now the supply, the inventory that you have is less, doesn't that mean that the cruise prices will go up for the remaining inventory? I would say simply yes, but it's nuanced, right? Cruising has not resumed, so cruise lines want your money, and one of the ways that they're going to get your money is to discount sailings still, even though demand is high. You can find some cruise deals, especially in the questionable months, especially for the rest of 2020, early 2021, in the months where we're not locked sure, you can still find some deals. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Once cruising resumes and it's somewhat normal again, if there is more demand than there is supply, then prices for cruises will go up. So be prepared to pay more for your cruises. Now, this will balance out. Cruise lines continue to add inventory back in. And here's some commentary that I actually had in yesterday's show, but I edited it out. The thing that hit me is, as we look at the 13 ships that Carnival Corporation is removing from the fleet, older, smaller ships, the cool thing is, as they put more inventory in, they're going to be able to accomplish capacity with fewer assets. So if you've taken out 2 fantasy class ships and you bring in the Mardi Gras, well, that holds the capacity of 2 fantasy class ships. It's a more efficient cruise ship, and so the cost of running 2 smaller cruise ships versus 1 big cruise ship, you're going to save money running the 1 bigger cruise ship, and you're going to be able to offer more capacity in 1 vessel than what you had to offer in 2. So yes, prices, I think, in the short term will go up, but as more assets come on board, as more inventory comes back to the fleet, you will see the situation where maybe supply outweighs demand, and the cruise lines are going to do whatever it takes to fill those ships. Another thing that really does come into play during this resume to cruising is the fact that cruise lines are going to limit the capacity on cruise ships. So that in itself is going to create a shortage of inventory. So it all depends on demand. If customer confidence is high and the demand is there and there are limited sailings, limited cruises that people can get on, then yeah, prices are going to go up. I mean, the cruise lines, they're a business. If they see a higher demand than there is a supply, they will increase their price until people won't pay that price so that they can maximize profit. Keep that in mind when you're deciding whether to take a refund or take future cruise credit, those kind of things. What you're paying for may cost more in the future. That's the show, but the big question I'm left with is this Hurt to Gruden episode going to hurt the cruising? That's really the question. Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Please show your support by hitting the like button. My name's Tony for Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.